Morning settled quietly over Evergreen, a small mountain town tucked against the Colorado foothills. Mist clung to the rooftops, and the scent of pine drifted through the cool air. On Maple Road, the soft roll of a paint roller broke the silence. Sarah Miller, a black woman in her early 30s with calm, thoughtful eyes, stood before her small wooden house. Slowly, she covered the faded walls with a new shade of paint. The color was a gentle blue, touched with gray like the sky before dawn. To Sarah, it wasn't just paint. It was Daniel's color, her late husband's. A white Marine who had fallen in Afghanistan 3 years earlier. When I come home, Daniel had once told her, "We'll paint this house blue, so every morning you wake up, you'll see the sky beside you." He never came home. Only the neatly folded flag and a framed photograph remained. Now Sarah kept her promise alone, painting through the morning chill. Each stroke of blue felt like a heartbeat, a whisper, "I still remember you." 8-year-old Noah stood nearby, gripping a small brush in both hands. Every time he smeared a bit of paint, he laughed. "Mom, this color looks like the sky the day Dad left." "Yes, sweetheart," she smiled. "It's exactly that sky." Her smile trembled, but she kept painting. The boy didn't need to see the tears that gathered when the sunlight caught the wet wall. The house had aged with silence. Since Daniel's death, Sarah had fixed nothing, just lived inside the echo of his absence. But as the blue spread across the wood, the house seemed to breathe again. Not just repainted, but reborn. Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly neighbor, walked over carrying a pitcher of lemonade. "Good heavens, Sarah. That color makes the whole street brighter. It's like the sky decided to live here." "Thank you," Sarah said softly. "I only wanted to keep a little piece of him." Mrs. Jenkins nodded, but her eyes dimmed. She remembered the whispers that once followed Sarah and Daniel. They had met 12 years earlier at the town library, where Sarah worked as a librarian and Daniel, a polite young man with sea-blue eyes, borrowed books about military history. A small conversation had turned into a long one, and eventually into love. Their marriage surprised many in Evergreen. Some blessed them, some stared. Her? The black librarian marrying a Miller boy? I guess times are changing, or maybe not. Sarah learned to stay quiet. Daniel learned to hold her hand in public. They believed love could outlast old lines drawn in other people's minds. But when war took him, those lines reappeared. At the grocery store, Sarah still heard murmurs. "She's lucky, married a soldier, got his pension. Maybe he went to prove something by marrying her." She kept walking, chin high. Because Daniel had loved her simply, without questions of color. That afternoon, sunlight streamed through the pines as Sarah finished the last wall. The little house glowed in soft blue, standing quietly among beige and ivory homes. Her chest lifted, the air felt lighter. She imagined Daniel leaning against the fence, smiling that calm smile. "You see, Dan? I kept my promise." Noah raced into the yard, shouting, "Mom! Our house is the prettiest one on the street." Sarah laughed, pulled him close, and let the warm light spill over them. For a moment, past and present touched, pain and peace blended into the same shade of blue. She didn't know that, only days later, this very color would test the conscience of the entire town. 3 quiet days passed after Sarah finished painting the house. Morning light spilled through the window, glimmering against the new blue walls. The color filled the room with calm. For the first time in years, Sarah felt that maybe, just maybe, she could start again. Then came the letter. A faint thud at the door, just paper sliding through the mail slot. She bent down and saw the logo printed neatly in the corner. Evergreen Homeowners Association, HOA. Her stomach tightened. She tore it open. The paper was cold, the words colder. Notice of violation, Code 14. The exterior paint color of 27, Maple Road does not comply with the approved palette. Please correct within 15 days or incur a fine of $1,200. Sarah stared at it until the letters blurred. $1,200, Almost an entire month of her wages at the library. She sank into the chair. How could this color be wrong? It wasn't loud or garish. It was soft, peaceful. She had seen houses painted darker, brighter, even red brick fences at the end of the street. None of them ever received a letter like this. That afternoon, Sarah drove into town to the HOA office, a small white building, too square, too perfect, like it was afraid of difference. Behind the front desk sat a woman in her late 50s with short blonde hair and a nameplate. Patricia Patterson, HOA president. Good afternoon, Sarah began, holding up the letter. I live at 27, Maple Road. I received this notice and I think there's been a misunderstanding. Mrs. Patterson adjusted her glasses without looking up. There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Miller. Evergreen allows only 3 approved shades for home exteriors: beige, off-white, and light gray. Your color is outside that palette. Sarah tried to keep her voice calm. It's a soft blue. It doesn't hurt the neighborhood. In fact, people have told me it looks nice. I'm sure they have, Mrs. Patterson replied coolly. But rules are rules. If everyone painted however they felt, this community would lose its uniformity. Sarah exhaled slowly. I painted it to honor my husband, Daniel Miller. He grew up here, served as a Marine, and died overseas. Blue was the color of his uniform. Mrs. Patterson finally looked up. Her eyes, pale and sharp behind the glasses, gave nothing back. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Miller, she said, tone clipped. But personal reasons cannot override community standards. Something unspoken passed between them. Patricia's gaze lingered for half a second too long, on Sarah's hands, on her dark skin against the white paper. Then came the quiet dagger. Maybe you could try a more neutral shade next time. Something that blends better with the rest of the neighborhood. Blends better. Sarah heard what wasn't said. When she stepped outside, the cold air bit harder than before. Sunlight fell pale across the snow, but she felt no warmth. As she walked home, a few neighbors paused their conversations. A man mowing his lawn looked up, shook his head slightly, then turned away. For the first time, Sarah saw it clearly. Her house, her color, her skin, standing apart in a town that prized sameness. That night, she sat on the porch with Noah. The blue walls glowed softly under the streetlight, looking almost purple now, part sky, part bruise. Mom, why are you sad? I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking. About the house? Yes. Do they not like the color? They say it breaks the rules. Noah frowned. But it's pretty. Why would they make a rule against something pretty? Sarah wrapped an arm around him. Because, sometimes, people are afraid of things that look different. They forget that difference is what makes the world beautiful. The next morning, a new notice appeared, this time pinned to the public bulletin board for everyone to see. Her name, in bold letters. Violation. Fine, $1,200. When Sarah walked to work, she heard the whispers ripple behind her. Told you that blue looks strange. Doesn't fit this neighborhood. You know, she's not really from here. Someone chuckled softly. Her husband was white, wasn't he? Guess that explains the blue. Sarah didn't turn around. But each word landed like a spark, catching on something deep inside her. That evening, Mrs. Jenkins brought over a basket of apples. I heard about the fine, the old woman said, shaking her head. People are upset. Many think it's unfair. Sarah smiled faintly. They're not just fining the color, Mrs. Jenkins. They're fining me for not blending in. Mrs. Jenkins's eyes softened. Child, don't let them tell you you don't belong. The only thing wrong with color is when people refuse to see the person behind it. Later, Sarah sat at her desk. Daniel's photo watched from the corner, his blue eyes calm and unwavering. You used to say love could erase those lines, Dan. Maybe it can't. Maybe I have to draw new ones myself. Her tears dropped onto the edge of the letter. Under the lamp, the wall behind her caught the mix of blue paint and red lamplight. Together, they turned violet. A color of mourning. A color of quiet rage. She wiped her face, straightened the letter, and whispered, "I'm not painting over this. Not the walls, not the memories, not the skin I live in." Because to erase the blue now would mean teaching her son that some colors must disappear to make others comfortable. And she refused to teach him that. News about the find spread through Evergreen faster than wildfire. A town that once felt too quiet suddenly buzzed with low conversations, in coffee shops, grocery aisles, and church parking lots. At Sam's Diner, the small cafe on the corner where veterans gathered each morning, tension filled the air. The smell of black coffee couldn't hide the heaviness of what they were discussing. Sam Richardson, a large black man with kind eyes and broad shoulders, slammed his cup down. "They find her? Daniel's wife? For paint?" His friend Ben, white, gray-haired, a veteran too, nodded slowly. "That's what I heard. HOA says the blue isn't approved." "Approved," Sam muttered. "They mean it's not beige enough for them." He leaned forward, his voice rising. "Daniel saved my life in Fallujah. And now his wife gets punished for a color that reminds her of him? No. Not in my town." By the end of the day, Sam had built a small wooden sign and planted it in front of his diner. Painted across it in bright yellow letters were 4 simple words. "Let her keep the blue." He set a clipboard beside it for signatures. People started adding their names. First Ben, then Mrs. Jenkins, then high school students, teachers, veterans, and shop owners. Within 48 hours, the board was full. Ribbons of blue fabric appeared on fences and mailboxes, tied by hands of every color. What began as quiet sympathy became something louder. A chorus of voices saying, "Enough." Sarah didn't know any of this yet. On Saturday morning, she drove into town to buy groceries. As she turned down Main Street, her breath caught. Blue ribbons fluttered on nearly every post. Store windows displayed small signs. "Blue means hope. Let her keep it. Color is not a crime." When she walked into the grocery store, the owner, Mrs. Lopez, greeted her warmly. "Hola, Sarah. I heard what's happening. Take this, please, it's on the house." She handed Sarah a bag of apples, smiling gently. Sarah tried to refuse. "I can't." "You can," Mrs. Lopez interrupted. "You made me remember something. My grandmother once said, every wall deserves a color that tells its story. Yours does." Sarah swallowed hard, unable to find words. She just nodded. That afternoon, Sam knocked on Sarah's door. When she opened it, he stood there with his sign and a folded list of hundreds of names. "You've got an army behind you, Sarah," he said with a grin. "And this army doesn't need a uniform." Sarah looked at the list, then at the sky, the same soft blue as her house. "I never asked for this fight, Sam." "No one ever does," he replied. "But the moment you stood your ground, you showed everyone else how to stand too." That night, Sarah sat by the window, watching the ribbons dance in the streetlight. For the first time in weeks, her fear began to loosen its grip. Outside, the gold glow of lamps mixed with the blue of her walls. And together, they formed a new shade, hope. Noah came running in with the local newspaper in his hand. "Mom, we're in the news." Across the front page, a photo showed Sarah and Noah standing by their blue house. The headline read, "Evergreen divided over a single color." Noah frowned. "Why do they say divided? I thought colors bring things together." Sarah smiled softly. "They will, baby. But sometimes, people need to see what's broken before they remember how to fix it." The next day, a TV crew arrived from Denver. Under the bright camera light, Sarah stood in front of her house. "Mrs. Miller," the reporter asked, "do you believe the find had anything to do with your race?" Sarah looked straight into the lens. Her voice was calm, steady. "Maybe my paint color isn't on their list. But I think my skin color isn't on it either." The crowd around her went silent. The reporter lowered his microphone. That night, her words echoed across Colorado. Hashtags spread online. Hashtag let her keep the blue. Hashtag color is not a crime. By morning, Evergreen was no longer the quiet town it once was. Letters poured in from across the state, from veterans, teachers, and mothers she had never met. One woman wrote, "I lost my husband in Iraq too. I painted our door blue. Thank you for reminding me that love is never the wrong color." Sarah read it aloud, tears in her eyes. She felt something shift, not just around her, but within her. It wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about belonging. About dignity. About who gets to decide which colors are right. That weekend, the townspeople gathered at the square. Hundreds stood shoulder to shoulder, white, black, Latino, Asian. Every shade of skin glowing beneath the noon sun. In their hands, they held small fabric squares of different colors, red, yellow, brown, white, blue, and black. Together, they stitched them into one large banner. When they lifted it up, the words in bright gold shone across the fabric. Evergreen stands together. The crowd began to sing, not the national anthem, but Lean on Me. Voices rose and blended, warm and imperfect, but beautiful. Sam took Sarah's hand. "This isn't about a house anymore," he said quietly. "It's about a town finally learning to see each other." That night, Sarah opened her journal and wrote by lamplight. Today, color stopped being a wall. It became a bridge. Our voices painted something brighter than any rule could erase. Outside her window, the ribbons of blue and gold swayed together. A living symbol of light and shadow. Difference and unity. Evergreen wasn't quiet anymore. But for the first time, it was alive. Friday night, the town hall of Evergreen glowed like a lantern in the snow. People stood in line outside, their breath rising in clouds beneath the winter sky. No one could remember a homeowners meeting ever drawing a crowd like this. Tonight, half the town had come. Inside, the air hummed with quiet tension. Folding chairs filled the hall, and every seat was taken. On the front table sat the members of the HOA board. In the middle, Patricia Patterson, her face pale and composed under the fluorescent lights. At the back of the room, Sarah held Noah's hand. He squeezed tightly, small fingers warm against hers. In her other hand, she held Daniel's framed photo, his Marine uniform a perfect blue, the trim white, his smile unshaken. When Mrs. Patterson tapped the microphone, the room fell silent. "This meeting," she began, "concerns the property at 27 Maple Road, owned by Mrs. Sarah Miller, whose exterior paint color violates HOA standards." A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah rose. Every eye followed her as she walked to the microphone. She took a breath. "I'm not here to fight anyone," she said softly. "I'm here to tell a story." She lifted the photograph. "This is my husband, Daniel Miller. He grew up here in Evergreen. He went to war wearing this uniform, blue, the color of the sky, the color of peace. He promised that when he came home, we would paint our house this color." Her voice wavered, but she didn't stop. "He never came home. So I kept the promise for both of us." She looked around the room, at faces she'd known for years, at neighbors who had once smiled and waved. "When I was fined for this color, I realized something. It wasn't the blue they didn't like. It was the reminder that not everyone here looks the same, loves the same, lives the same. And yet we all call this place home." The room was still. Somewhere in the back, a single pair of hands began to clap. Then another. And another. Soon, applause filled the hall. Voices rose, echoing through the wooden rafters. "Let her keep the blue. Let her keep the blue." Mrs. Patterson struck the gavel sharply. "Order, please. This is a formal meeting, not a rally." From the crowd, a deep voice answered. It was Sam Richardson. He stepped forward, standing tall in his old veteran's jacket. "With respect, Ma'am, maybe it is a rally. Because this is about more than paint. He turned toward the crowd, voice booming. Daniel Miller pulled me out of the rubble in Fallujah. He didn't stop to ask what color my skin was. He just saved me. And now his wife is being punished for a color that honors him? I won't stand for that. The room erupted again, louder this time. Mrs. Patterson's hand trembled slightly as she tried to regain control. An elderly woman rose slowly from the third row, Mrs. Jenkins, her cane tapping against the floor. I've lived in Evergreen 47 years, she said. I've seen beige, white, gray, and every shade between. But never have I seen a color as brave as this blue. She pointed toward Sarah. Because this color stands for love, not uniformity. And if our rules make us blind to love, then the rules are wrong. Another voice joined in, a young HOA member, a man of Asian descent who had been quiet all evening. When I moved here, people told me my house looked different. I stayed silent because I wanted to fit in. But tonight, I can't stay silent anymore. Uniformity without compassion isn't order. It's fear. Applause thundered again. People stood, hands clapping, eyes bright. Under the harsh white lights, every face shone in its own shade, brown, tan, pale, ebony, together forming a living mosaic. Mrs. Patterson's shoulders dropped. Her eyes swept the room, from Sam to Mrs. Jenkins, to the young man, to Sarah standing near the front with her son. And something in her expression softened. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. I thought my job was to preserve unity, she said slowly. But I see now, unity isn't when everything looks the same. It's when everyone feels they belong. She lifted the gavel again. I call for a new vote. One by one, the board members raised their hands. In favor of upholding the fine? Only one hand. In favor of removing it? 2 hands rose immediately. Cheers exploded through the hall. Someone shouted. Add it to the palette. Call it Miller Blue. The chant spread like wildfire. Miller Blue. Miller Blue. Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes. So be it, she said softly. From this day forward, Miller Blue will be part of Evergreen's official colors. A color for memory, courage, and hope. Sarah bent down, hugging Noah close. His small voice trembled with joy. Mom, did we win? No, baby, she whispered, smiling through tears. We learned. And sometimes, learning is the biggest victory of all. When they stepped outside, snow was falling again, but gently now, like feathers. The moon hung over the mountains, silver and calm. Its light brushed the freshly fallen snow and reflected off their house, turning the blue walls into a shimmering teal. Sarah stood in the cold, breath rising into the night. For the first time in a long time, she felt warm. Evergreen had changed. The world hadn't turned perfect, but it had turned toward the light. And that was enough. A full year had passed since the night of the hearing. Winter had melted into spring, and Evergreen no longer looked the same. Houses that were once uniform in beige and gray now bloomed with gentle color, pale yellow, soft green, lilac, and, in the middle of Maple Road, a proud and shining Miller Blue. At the edge of town, a new sign welcomed visitors. Welcome to Evergreen, town of many colors. Below it, in silver letters, another line read. Miller Blue, a promise kept. Sarah walked slowly down Maple Road with Noah beside her. He was 9 now, taller, his curls bouncing as he pushed his bike along. Mom, today we have to talk about our heroes at school. Who are you going to talk about? She asked. Dad, he said. And you? Sarah laughed. Me? Why me? Because you didn't let anyone erase our color. Her smile softened. Then promise me, Noah, wherever you go, remember this. Your color isn't just on your skin or on a wall. It's in the way you treat people. He nodded, sunlight gleaming in his brown eyes. In the town square, workers were unveiling a large mural on the side of the library, a gift from the community. When the tarp dropped, the crowd gasped. Painted across the wall was Daniel in his Marine uniform, standing beneath a sky of many colors: blue, gold, rose, white, and brown. Beside him stood Sarah and Noah, hand in hand. Behind them stretched the houses of evergreen, each glowing in its own shade. At the bottom, words ran across the mural. For those who fought for freedom, and for those who kept the colors alive. Applause erupted. Sam Richardson lifted his hand in salute. Mrs. Jenkins wiped her eyes. Children pointed up at the mural, smiling. Sarah stood quietly, heart swelling. Daniel's face looked down from the wall, calm and proud, and for a moment she felt him standing right beside her. That evening, she returned home and opened the windows. The sunset poured into the room, painting the blue walls with strokes of gold and rose. Every color of the day melted into one: white from the clouds, brown from the earth, black from the shadows of the pines. No one color dominated. Together, they made something beautiful. She leaned against the doorway, breathing it in, the scent of paint, pine, and peace. From somewhere nearby came the sound of a guitar, a familiar tune, the one Daniel used to play, "Sky Over Home." Sarah closed her eyes. She could almost hear his voice. "You see, Sarah? They can finally see each other now." Later that night, she sat at her desk and wrote a letter for Noah, one she would give him when he was grown. "My dear Noah, I want you to remember this: the world is full of colors, and you never have to apologize for yours. Some people will try to make you feel small because you are different. Be patient with them. Change takes time and courage. If anyone ever asks what your favorite color is, tell them, you love the color of humanity." She folded the letter and placed it inside Daniel's old wooden box, beside the letters he had written from the war. Two voices, one from the past, one for the future, now rested side by side. That June, Evergreen held its first festival of colors. The streets filled with laughter and music. Lanterns of every shade hung from windows: blue for memory, white for justice, red for courage, yellow for faith, brown for roots, black for strength. When night fell, the lanterns lit up the town in a glowing rainbow that shimmered against the mountain sky. For a moment, it looked as if the stars had descended to join them. The townspeople sang together, their voices blending like light. "Lean on me, when you're not strong." No one led the song, it just happened, 100 different tones, 100 different colors, all moving as one. Sarah stood at the edge of the crowd, Noah's hand in hers. Lantern light danced in his eyes. Around them, neighbors of every race and age laughed and swayed. The world hadn't become perfect, but it had become kinder. When the music faded, Sarah whispered to the night, "Color is not a crime. It's a language." And tonight, Evergreen finally learned how to speak it. Dawn came quietly the next morning. The first light of the sun touched the rooftops, turning every color soft and warm. The town woke slowly, peacefully. On Maple Road, the Miller house glowed under the morning light. The blue walls shimmered like water, reflecting every other color around them. One house. Many colors. One promise kept. The color of humanity. And the hope that would never fade.